The Homesteads to Hollywood podcast is a CJSW original production funded by the Radio Meter Program Grant through the Community Radio Fund of Canada. In the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, we would also like to acknowledge the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. This includes the Blackfoot Confederacy, comprising the Siksika, Piikani, and Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, which includes the Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary, traditionally recognized by the Blackfoot name of Mohkinstsis, is also home to the Métis Nation of Alberta, Districts 5 and 6.
Part 5. The Prairie Problem.
I've been really fortunate to be able to make 5 films through the system in Canada, and they've funded that to the West. So I've been lucky, but I've seen it. Who's getting funded? I look for Alberta, and there's not a lot, but yet Telefilm keeps saying, we want more, but then they say, well, no, it's not good enough. Well, what's good enough? Like, maybe you need to get boots on the ground and try a little bit harder because, Contra, as you said, there are talented voices here, and that's they need to work harder at that, I think.
From Cool Runnings to The Revenant and Brokeback Mountain to The Last of Us, cinematic star power didn't just happen to Alberta. In fact, the province has a long and illustrious history in film that has developed into an internationally renowned industry. From Homesteads to Hollywood, Alberta takes center stage in this 10-part exploration into how things came to be and where they're going. My name is Liam Daw.
And I'm Ingrid Vargas. Together we'll be peeling back the layers of Alberta's intricate film industry to answer the question, just how did we get here? There are many elements that each play their role in this ecosystem, such as a storied past, a vibrant underground, a deep talent pool in the trades, and of course, the continuous run-on blockbusters.
In Part 4, Film Fatale, we turn the clock back to the early 90s for a closer look at Alberta's independent film origins through a queer and femme lens. Since then, the industry has continued to evolve forwards during the last 3 decades. However, one question seems to present itself over and over again. Are Albertan filmmakers receiving proportionate support from national funding bodies? As a continuation of our exploration into the province's independent film community, this episode will be dedicated to unpacking the challenges that local filmmakers are currently facing. To do this, we'll be presenting the group discourse from a panel we assembled of Calgary-based film creatives, each offering their own opinion and experience on navigating Alberta's dynamic filmscape.
So my name is Paige K Boudreau, and I'm a filmmaker born and raised here in Calgary, Alberta. I went to SAIT for the 2-year film program right out of high school, and have been working in the industry more or less ever since. So it is my day job and my side hustle.
My name is Kyle Thomas. I'm a filmmaker and producer here in Alberta with North Country Cinema as my company. Went out to Montreal to Concordia University for film school, and that's kind of where I met a bunch of like-minded people, and we started our company together and decided to ship out west and make it happen. But I am originally from Calgary.
Hello, my name is Contra. I think I'm probably the newest to filmmaking here. I think I pivoted into this industry in 2020. I think people know me predominantly as a musician through Carta Madras, but that was my entry into film. My company is Foreigners. We're an art and production house from Alberta.
Julian, when you run over the details of your life over and over, trying to find the fault lines that lead you back to the truth, are you asking yourself the right questions? You're never really sure why anything happens the way it does, are you? Do you know how we get chosen? Why we get marked? It haunts you, and after all these years, you can still hardly tell who's allowed to live, who's supposed to die, which one of us are cursed to exist forever. In between it all,
Throughout the series, we've learned so much about Alberta's relationship with cinema. Within that, and perhaps most definitive, is that the shooting locations are second to none, and the crews are as talented and dedicated as any. While the province has made a reputation for itself within those contexts, many like Paige Boudreau believe the creatives here are getting overlooked and underfunded. You'll hear them refer to executive roles in film as above-the-line positions.
I think there's a detriment, and I also think there's an excellent learning opportunity. And you hear a lot of Hollywood stars say, Calgary has the best crews in the world. And I don't think that they're bullshitting. I think that we do, because crews below the line specifically has the opportunity to work on these really high-scale things. But in terms of above-the-line team, they're always outsourced. And so there's never an opportunity to shadow or grow or actually experience that on that level. So sometimes when service production is taking up the lion's share of production labor and gear and all that kind of thing, it's not really long-term benefiting our creatives. In my day job, I work in unscripted, primarily true crime documentaries, and I have had the opportunity to work almost exclusively in above-the-line positions. And in that case, it's really awesome to learn. But in terms of everything that I want to do in scripted, for some reason, especially with formal funding bodies, it feels like it doesn't count. And that's really frustrating as well, because it feels like, how in Alberta is anyone supposed to move up when we have so few opportunities, and then the ones that we do for whatever reason aren't acceptable or don't translate, when I would argue they absolutely do.
You see kind of the contracts coming in. You even see something like a Travel Alberta commercial, and it's like no one above the line is from here. It's always some director that they've brought in from somewhere else. And I've been wondering it a lot, which is like, what cultural relevance do you put on people from elsewhere that you can't put on people above the line here? It's like, you can't wait. You have to create those opportunities for those people to grow into those roles. So much of like my career has been like figuring out ways to ensure I can create that cultural relevance in a short time. I've just met so many people who like wait for it to happen, and it's like, it's not happening here for some reason. Like, they're not like letting people lead. In the past year, like, I keep telling people to come film here because we have incredible crew, we have incredible locations, but I think we have incredible thinkers too. If you just like listen to them and put them in certain rooms together, I think we can make like wow cinema.
Later in the discussion, Contra raises a point about regional identity. More specifically, how Alberta's lack of above-the-line recognition can actively inhibit filmmakers pitching projects. The silver lining is that this has instilled Albertans with an inherent resiliency for making things work.
I think a lot of great cities like New York, Berlin, Paris, it just has its own brand figured out, that filmmakers from those places don't need to do as much work to get into a room and be heard, right? Whereas like for us, it's like you could be this crazy script writer, like in an insane DOP, but like the brand of being from Alberta isn't like punching up for you. A lot of artists here right now are trying to create that brand where you come with a different edge. I think that has to be done. I think for us, it's like you have to be good and you have to be heard and you have to be so good. You know what I mean?
And even then it's not enough.
And then it's not enough, right?
Devastating.
Right? So like you're like brand building for yourself as a filmmaker and like the company you have and your province, right? Like you're literally like, and now I have to like carry my province on my back and give it this voice when I go into every room. That's so crazy to ask people who are like kind of trying to survive in the industry they love. But it's also an interesting challenge.
The province has certainly benefited in a variety of ways from hosting large Hollywood productions in its backyard. However, a big budget can cast a shadow over the other operations going on in the area. And when it comes to utilizing local resources, indies can be the odd man out.
My answer is a bit of a personal one because it's kind of a personal journey. So where I'm at this point for me, I think that we've seen a shift happen with a lot of larger productions coming in, the Last of Us effect, we can call it, I guess, that make it a little more challenging for independent filmmakers to do the run and gun, make it happen on $50,000 kind of thing because day rates have gone up. Like from a producing standpoint, that is a little bit more difficult to put your project together and make it happen when, everybody's expectations and costs have gone up for gas, for food, for all of that, but budgets haven't gone up. So how can we be more innovative while we're already being innovative is the question, and that kind of gets exhausting after a while, but still trucking on.
The beautiful
never really with us. Fantastic ideas.
From a distance, it might seem like the solution to this dilemma is simple. Increase funding through grants and bursaries and spread it out geographically. After all, that is in essence how the system is supposed to work. In reality, the process is complex, bureaucratic, and often centered around Canada's metropolises like Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver. This leaves many filmmakers across the prairies feeling completely disregarded.
I've applied, just for an example, to the Telefilm Talent to Watch program, I think 4 times, and I've been shortlisted every time. And then it just devastates me, not only to not see my name on the list, but not to see a single Alberta project. I have colleagues who have spoken to Telefilm, and they've given the feedback that they don't think the Alberta applications are nearly as strong as anyone else. And I just, over the years, have a really hard time believing that it's that simple. It feels like the system is rigged sometimes, and I'm sure that not every project coming out of Alberta is strong enough, but it's so frustrating, especially when there's such a lack of feedback given, to understand what is above the line doing wrong. Why won't you give us a chance, an opportunity, especially knowing that one of Telefilm's mandates is to grow the culture. The only way I know how to do that is to give us opportunities, and sometimes you need the opportunity to fail.
I mean, I guess I have a bit of a different perspective. I mean, I've been fortunate to be funded from Telefilm for 5 feature projects, but that was also a while ago. I mean, that was 11 years ago now. So, and there's been a lot over the years, like from that point where we've seen Telefilm, like the light shining on them going like, okay, this is problematic. The structure needs to change. The way that films get funded needs to change and all that kind of stuff, particularly because I went to make my second feature with Telefilm and I was able to get less than they're now offering for the talent to watch. So it's like, oh, okay, so put all this money into like pumping up this talent if you can get it, and then, oh, but you want to make another one? Well, we don't have adequate funding unless you can figure out how to bring in private investors and all that kind of stuff, which I'm not really great at, to be honest. So I look to the models that we have in Canada, like Canada Council for the Arts, Alberta Media Fund, stuff like that, to be able to put my budgets together. So the ceiling I'm hitting is that I can't really get a higher budget anymore without doing interprovincial co-productions, international co-productions, or private equity.
Well, and it's so crazy to me that you clearly have a success track record of 5 features, and for them not to increase that support and to, in fact, decrease it in some instances, like that's the opposite of growing talent. That's the opposite of growing an industry.
Yeah, it's a massive pinch point that I was like, oh, okay, it's not. Look, that's not the case for everybody because it depends, again, what province you're in. I've had friends from Quebec and Toronto that watch one of my films and they go, oh, wow, okay, so what was that like? 1.52? I'm like, 200,000? Yeah, like, they go, what? There's no way. Because they're just used to having more funding, and we're part of our Prairie resilience, I find, honestly. And it's like, get that $15,000 from the Alberta Foundation for the Arts, and we make it look like 50. It's that Wild West mentality. It still is. You still can get it done and make it happen.
I'm not quite sure how to be out here, How to smile back at people who smile at you in the street.
And you don't get this feeling at home?
No, not really. It's suffocating here.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know, maybe because I thought I'd never come back.
But you did.
Yeah.
And that took a lot of courage. Also, to me, that says I need to work through this.
Sheila?
Commitment to a little bit of help.
Sheila?
From speaking to those involved, it's apparent that the question isn't, are Albertan filmmakers underfunded? But rather, why are filmmakers outside of Toronto, Vancouver, and Quebec underfunded? Funds are awarded to applicants at the discretion of the funding bodies, so there's a pretty big gray area around the whole thing. With all our talent, why are Prairie provinces so underlooked?
Again, it comes to like this personal struggle, and it speaks to that, which is the balance between art and commerce with film. these big shows coming to town, that's an economic driver. And we've seen that kind of shift within funding, the FTTC versus the Alberta Media Fund. So they're starting to see that one is more of an economic driver, one is more of a cultural driver. But for me, I want to be able to do both. They're still very far apart at this point. There's a spotlight on our province. It showcases all the amazing locations and everything. And that's the reason I'm here still. It was because I love the diverse locations and the being able to go to small towns and shoot. And it does make it more challenging in the busier seasons, though, because you are up against those big productions. And so from an economic standpoint, just because we don't contribute as much as independent films doesn't mean that we're not valuable. So we really need to focus on that. Otherwise, the money will always crush the little guys, unfortunately.
I don't really think granting bodies are funding good ideas all the time. I think they're funding an application that looks like it could happen. That makes me feel really bad. Because then what ideas come to the surface, right? Which ideas get lost in the muck because it's not convincing enough to show you how the budget can be executed. I mean, that's an issue of its own, right? How it's to prove to get certain money for an incredible idea that could change the face of your province. And then on the other hand, I also think as artists, when so much of your time is getting crunched into this whole begging for money exercise, it's crazy what it does to your ideas, right? It shoehorns them into weird places, right? And then you sit on things for years and you're well, now what will I do with it? I'll cut the budget.
I think that film is tricky because film is an industry and it's also an art form. And a lot of times, both funders and creators get those blurred. And it speaks to what you were talking about grants, where if it's a culture grant, it should be judged based on the merit of the product and the creative versus the execution. And in an ideal world, the funder or whoever would be giving those people support to fill that gap, because that shouldn't be the expectation. Versus if you're applying through a more commerce-focused, then yes, execution, return on investment, important, of course. And so I think that's where I see a lot of the support lacking. And even when the big push for women in film happened, I saw a lot of women who were excellent but inexperienced being pushed to incredibly senior levels and failing because they did not have the support to get there. And then a lot of people said, well, see, we told you women can't do it. And that's not the case at all. It's about seeing the potential, seeing the hustle, which we have in spades here in this province, and then creating those building blocks. And I'm not saying hand it to us, but give us a chance to build it, because otherwise how are we supposed to get there? And if you want to build the culture, focus on building the culture. And if you want to build the commerce, focus on building the commerce. That's where I see, and that's probably why it hasn't been solved, but that's where I see that gap is helping people set them up for success and then help them grow, because that's the only way that the province as a whole is going to grow and find its voice.
Despite the fact that funding for indie filmmakers in Alberta is inconsistent at best, and blockbuster productions exert pressure on the limited resources, there is still a thriving underground film ecosystem. Resilient and compelled to create art that speaks to the land they live on, Albertan creatives are still finding ways to rally productions and deliver passionate projects at a high level. Those who stay here to pursue a career above the line operate in what Kyle and Paige refer to as the Wild West mentality.
It's nice that a lot of people come here and stay here and want to build the community. And it is the Wild West, and everyone is an artist at heart, and everyone understands what it takes to get something done. And just this past summer, I bootstrapped my first feature, personally funded, and everyone stepped up. And I felt so badly, after we've worked together for 10 plus years, is it still okay for me to ask you to work for free? It's because people want to do the work. People want to tell stories. People want to make art, and sometimes people are tired of working on another corporate video or whatever, right? And people, I think, also really believe in truly Albertan and Prairie stories, and I have a very unique lens being born and raised in Calgary too, but it feels like it is such a big bustling, we have that city feeling, but just outside is sort of the calm and the serene, but also lonely and isolating feeling of the sprawling prairies, and we have the mountains, and it's really a really unique voice, but also a very universal voice. I think one of my favorite things about creating films in Alberta is that everyone wants the same thing and people are hungry to make that art. And so it's nice to feel like you're not alone in that.
All little kids think the world is safe before they learn the truth. Holy shit.
What? Oh, shit. Hey, Jade. I know you don't want to talk about it, but I won't mind if you want to stop.
That's an understatement.
I'm just trying to be supportive.
By getting me to stop doing something I want to?
By talking to you about
some woman dying.
Even if that's true, it has to be having some effect on you.
Look, don't leverage what I've got going on just to get what you want.
What's that?
You didn't even want to come to begin with.
That's bullshit. I'm here, aren't I?
Only because you have no clue what you want. Maybe I took advantage of you. You don't even know why you came to begin with.
And you did? Isn't the point to figure that out as we go?
I think the point is different for everyone.
You mean we're not all just doing this to avoid dealing with real life like you?
Traditionally, many Albertans found their way into the film industry through post-secondary education, which usually took them out of province. In today's digital age, nonlinear paths into the business are more common than ever, and something that Contra is familiar with.
I think what's interesting about Alberta right now is I think there's a lot of cultural disruption happening. There's a lot of new people in film in Alberta that you typically wouldn't see in this industry before. There's like this new school of film kids who aren't actually coming to film through like academic institutions, right? Like they're not even learning film through school. They're kind of jumping into it from other entertainment disciplines. So I'm kind of in this phase of looking at film through that standpoint. I find that a lot of creatives I moved with were trying to make opportunities for ourselves. We're being informed by a little bit more of a global lens, trying to bring it into Alberta, even in how money moves in film, how opportunities are made. So yeah, it's like a tipping point time in Alberta. That's what it feels like when I look at it.
Speaking, actually, kind of something that you said, Contra, just about how people from film are coming from different mediums. I think that is so cool because for the longest time, I've had this kind of academic hat on in a sense where I look at the province and I go, well, and we have SAIT, which is a very amazing school, and people come out of it and they have careers and it's awesome. But if you wanted to go take a bachelor-style traditional film production program, you can't anywhere in the province. So you have to leave. Most of the other provinces have that opportunity. And, you know, I value it for me because that's just my journey. And like it really focused on like figuring out your voice and finding your voice as a filmmaker. And that was important for me. And I met a bunch of these like-minded filmmakers that were also in that same space. I'm not saying that's the only path, but if you wanted to do that in Alberta, you can't. There's nowhere to do that. I think that has to change because then we're not shipping people out. If you want to go to post-secondary, like to do a bachelor's program or even a master's, like you have to leave this province. And what are the chances of you coming back? So that's something that I think could potentially help people stay here if that's the path they want to take.
If there's anything to take away from the discussion so far, it's that Alberta is more than a scenic backdrop to the film industry. It carries stories and incredible talent with the ability to tell them. That's what makes the premise of keeping filmmakers within the province so important.
I really enjoy being in a place that is on the verge of change. And I'm saying that as someone who like moved to Toronto and moved back. And I find Alberta is a really crazy place. This is a very surreal place to make art. And I wish people leaned into that surrealism more. I think art made in the prairies can be very esoteric. I think we have incredibly weird stories coming out of here. I think we have really funny stories in Alberta. Even our landscape makes us into better filmmakers because we're thinking about the land in different ways compared to other spaces. I think the gap is the stories I want to hear aren't coming up yet, but I know they're there. right? Because I'm speaking to people here all the time, and I wish people leaned in a little bit more to the weirdness of being here, how horrifying it is at times, how funny it is at times, because this is a wacky, wacky place.
All of the movies that I've been a part of, we were all not ashamed of setting our film in Alberta, despite what a distributor might say or something like that. Like, well, can't we make it more generic American town so that it has better market value? And like, I don't know. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the different corners of this province. I live in a small town now. I've gone through periods where I feel uncomfortable over the years being an artist here. But like, there's a bit of like this disruptive nature as well that I think makes it unique and surreal. You know, when I went to school in Montreal, all I wanted to do was come back to Alberta to make my projects, because that's where the energy is that I've invested in. Setting stories here, looking for new meaning to my life as an Albertan. That journey's not over for me in my writing. So all the times I might feel like it is, but it's not. So I'm just, it always surprises me kind of what's going to happen next.
We'd like to extend a huge thank you to our panel of Kyle Thomas, Paige Boudreau, and Contra. Their personal experience helped contextualize what is just a snapshot of Alberta's independent filmscape. In part 6, we'll turn our attention towards some of the institutions that comprise the framework for supporting indie film in the province. It's a great follow-up from this episode's conversation, and we hope you'll stick around for it.
It was because of AMAS and places like M-Media and CSIF that I actually ended up becoming a filmmaker, because these centers allowed someone like me who didn't have any formal training to just gain sort of more working experience. I think there's a lot of change of that for filmmakers. Like, a lot of filmmakers are opting not to go through the formal training route and just learning sort of hands-on. Or you have like collectives like the Foreigners, who don't really have formal training in film, but they're creating films that are being shown at the Calgary International Film Festival, along with filmmakers that do have formal training. So I think there's definitely a shift in how people are creating works, and sort of with the evolution of like technology and making things easier and easier for people to get into film. I think that's going to change the way things are being taught, and there's going to be more investment on telling a good story.
Homesteads to Hollywood is a CJSW original recorded and produced in Calgary, Alberta. Our outreach coordinator is Natalie Schmidt. Audio editing is from Maria Pletneva. Assistant production and research from Ingrid Vargas, and is executively produced by myself, Liam Daw. Our theme song is Clean Conscience by Calgary's Young Neighbors. Music for this episode, also out of Calgary, comes from Astral Swans. Film clips used during this episode, in order of appearance, are from Foreigner's 2023 short Gin Julian, the 2021 Kyle Thomas North Country Cinema feature Range Roads, and Paige Boudreau's 2017 short film The Indigo Undergo.